James F. Burns contributed to the common good for the state of South Carolina by becoming an active U.S. Senator during the New Deal. He was an essential advisor to FDR and Truman during World War II and was the governor of South Carolina. James F. Burns, also known as Jimmy Burns, had very humble beginnings. He was born on May 2nd, 1882 in Charleston. A few months before his death, his father had passed away. His mother was able to support him by becoming a seamstress. At the age of 14, Jimmy Burns quit school to work at a law office. By the age of 26, he passed the bar and opened his own law office. In 1910, Burns is elected to South Carolina's 2nd Congressional District. According to Walter Edgar, Burns made sure South Carolina got its fair share or more of federal assistance. He helped get federal funding for highways in South Carolina. He promoted that it helped particularly the farmers of the state as well as the businessmen. This continued drive to help South Carolinians led to larger political aspirations. Burns set his eyes on becoming a senator. In 1925, he ran against Coleman Livingston Blease. Unfortunately, Blease had the support of the KKK, and Burns lost a close race. But Burns did not give up. He ran again against Blease in 1930 and won. Burns became a supporter for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Burns became an avid New Dealer and a spokesman for FDR's New Deal. Just like when he was elected to South Carolina's 2nd Congressional District, he made sure South Carolina benefited. Burns pushed through key legislation like the Civil Conservation Corps, also known as the CCC, and the Workers' Progress Administration, also known as the WPA. The WPA was the largest employer in the state of South Carolina for a number of years. In that time, it constructed or improved 1,138 bridges, 11,699 culverts, 10,000 miles of highways, 2,179 schools, 1,267 non-educational buildings such as courthouses and jails, and 2 hydroelectric projects. The WPA also created 2.1 million garments made for the poor in the WPA sewing rooms. Literacy efforts all but wiped out literacy in the educatable population. The CCC was also very popular in South Carolina. Males ages 17 to 15 were employed to do conservation work. These workers thinned almost 50,000 acres of forest, spent 115,000 man-days planting trees, and created 1,500 miles of truck trails, and created the state's first 14 state parks. By 1939, almost 32,000 South Carolinians served in the CCC. Through his service to FDR during the Great Depression, FDR appointed Burns to the Supreme Court in 1941. With the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the U.S. entered World War II the next day. FDR needed his trusted associate to help. Burns was appointed to the head of economic stabilization and then to the head of war mobilization. His job as the head of the war mobilization was to mobilize the entire economy and manufacturing to fight the war. His help was vital to FDR during his 4th term, so much so that he was given the nickname of Assistant President. When FDR passed away in 1945, Vice President Harry Truman became president. Burns was one of the first people Truman called and offered Burns the Secretary of State position. He held that position until 1947 when he resigned due to tensions between Truman and himself. Burns comes back home to South Carolina, where he becomes the governor of South Carolina. He served as governor from 1951 to 55, due to South Carolina only having a 1-term limit. As governor, he pushed through the first sales tax for education. The sales tax raised over $124 million by 1955. He also asked the state legislators for $128 million for education. During his tenure as governor, he also passed laws against the KKK, specifically one that banned wearing masks in public, except on Halloween. These laws showed that he wanted to change their Jim Crow policies. As governor, he also brought continued growth to South Carolina. By 1955, 25 new industrial plants were under construction, representing millions of dollars and thousands of jobs. Some people say that because he believed in the idea of separate but equal, this prolonged the integration of schools in South Carolina and hurt South Carolinians. The belief in separate but equal was a common thought in the U.S., especially in the South. Burns did believe this, but he focused on the equal part. He allotted 2/3 of the $124 million to improve schools for African Americans. He bought textbooks, buses, and hired more teachers for African American schools. Jimmy Burns is an example of the American dream. From his humble beginnings to the governor of South Carolina, Jimmy Burns has contributed to the common good for the state of South Carolina and for the United States. He has done this by becoming an active U.S. Senator during the New Deal, being an essential advisor to FDR and Truman during World War II, and the governor of South Carolina. Hopefully, we can produce more politicians like him.